The following is a production of Stevenson Media. Want to tip the host? Just scan the QR code or click the link in the description. Get a free Houston Sports State of the Union podcast t-shirt with a donation of $50 or more.
This is the Houston Sports State of the Union podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, the president of Houston Sports Nation, Nick Stevenson.
My goodness, thank you so much, and please be seated. My fellow Houstonians, it's been a long time. I shouldn't have left you without a dope podcast to step to, but I am back, and I am the self-appointed president of Houston Sports Nation. Welcome to this Houston Sports State of the Union address for the week of December 29th. I hope everyone had a very safe and happy new year. Welcome to 2025. There's lots of big things coming in the world of Houston sports, in the world of content creators that I have so graciously been incepted into, and I'm having a good time doing it. So it's such a pleasure to do this show for you guys this evening. As always, there's a million different things you could be doing tonight, but if you chose to spend a little bit of time with me, I really do appreciate it. On tonight's show, are the Houston Texans cooked? Well, it sure looks that way after they got embarrassed on Christmas Day, losing to the Baltimore Ravens 31-2. I'm not going to have a whole lot to break down about that game, but I do want to talk about what is next for the Houston Texans. They have a game coming up against the Titans on Sunday. How should they treat it? I want to know what you think. The Houston Rockets have been impressive, but many think that they need to make a trade in order to acquire a superstar player. I'm going to tell you 4 players that are already on their roster that I believe could turn them into contenders immediately if they step up and reach their full potential. And also, if we don't know this already, it's looking more and more less likely that the Astros are going to bring back Alex Bregman. I want to know how Astros fans feel about possibly taking a step back this season. Are the Astros even going to take a step back? We'll talk about that. And lastly, I want to discuss TikTok. We all know that it is on its last leg in the United States of America, and I'm a little irritated about something in regards to TikTok. So I want to talk to you guys about all of that and more on this 39th episode of the Houston Sports State of the Union podcast. Really quick, let me remind you of the ways that you can continue to support this show. One of them you are doing right now. You're listening, you're watching, hopefully by now you're sharing with your friends and family. Please remind them to follow, like, and subscribe wherever they get their podcast fix. If they prefer to watch podcasts, you can find me on YouTube, obviously on Facebook, Twitch, X, and Instagram now. I am doing live stream on Instagram. So very, very excited to be doing those things. That's the number one way you can support me. Just watch, share with your friends. If you want to leave me a little bit of change or a tip, I do have a QR code right here in the corner. If you're unable to scan that QR code, do not worry. The link to my tip jar is in the description of either the video you're watching or the audio you're listening to. If you want to leave me a little some, I will gladly accept it. Anything you leave me goes right back into this show. And I would, with a donation of $50 or more, I'll send you guys some Houston Sports State of the Union podcast swag. It would be my pleasure to do so. Another way you can support me with finances is you look in those links. Look in the description of the video or the audio that you're listening to. I have affiliate links for Houston Sports fan gear, and I have affiliate links for all of the equipment that I use to bring you this fine podcast. If you guys were to purchase anything from those Amazon links, I will also get a commission from that. And lastly, I do have sponsorship opportunities available. If you're running a small business, advertising can be expensive. I think I have really competitive rates to get your business out there. And I would love to represent your business and help grow your business. And let's grow our businesses together. So if you're interested in doing that, please email me at hsstateoftheunionpod@gmail.com. Or if you are following me on any of my socials, feel free to hit me up in the DMs. Those are the ways you can support the show. But like I said, the number one way you're doing right now, and I appreciate you guys so much for joining me. All right, let's get into this thing. Let's start with the state of the Houston Texans. Okay, I don't know if anybody's watching live, but if you are watching live, I would love for you guys to join the conversation via the chat, maybe even take some phone calls. So I would love to talk about all of our Houston sports team, but especially the Houston Texans right now. because the Houston Texans looked really, really bad versus Baltimore on Christmas. And you can make all the excuses that you want. We talked about how this was the most brutal part of their schedule. They played 3 games in 10 days. Well, so did the Ravens, and they looked pretty damn good. Now, I talked about this with my fellow twin Toro, Ruben Calvillo, who, if you guys are not familiar with, I do another show. It's a Houston Texans podcast for ESPN Houston, or it is in association with ESPN Houston and 713 Houston Sports. And we were talking on that show about how important these last few games for the Houston Texans were after they had already locked up the division championship. And for me, I knew that, yes, maybe off paper, maybe for the sense of morale, for the narrative surrounding this team, it was important to beat teams like the Kansas City Chiefs, like the Baltimore Ravens. But at the end of the day, on paper, in regards to the standings, it really didn't matter. And I can't speak for these players. None of them admitted this out loud, at least. But I felt like the Texans understood that the Baltimore game really didn't mean anything. And the fact that it was their 3rd game in 10 days, they just looked like they came out flat and no energy. And CJ did admit that. He said he played probably the worst game of his career. And he said he didn't come out with the energy. And, you know, for us, that might seem crazy. How do you not come out with energy? It's Christmas. You're on Netflix. It's Beyonce's performing at halftime. It's prime time. Lights are on. How are you not excited and have the energy for this game? Well, guys, we can say that because we didn't play 3 football games in 10 days. And for the Ravens, that game actually did mean something because they had not yet wrapped up their division. So they definitely came out like a team that knew they needed to win that game in order to win the division, and they did so. I'm not making any excuses for the Texans. They looked terrible. And for me, the only good thing that came out of that game is nobody significantly was injured, which was the biggest concern I had coming out of the Miami game where we lost Tank Dell. In my opinion, the Titans game coming up, it absolutely means nothing. Now, DeMeco Ryans has already said that the starters will play. I think that's a mistake, but I'm not the head coach. DeMeco Ryans gets paid a lot more money than I do. And I can understand a little bit why he wants to start his starters, because they played terrible against Baltimore, and you want to have them playing good football and maybe be in some type of a rhythm going into the playoffs. My only contention to that is you also want them to be healthy going into the playoffs. And we've talked about this so many times, and I probably sound repetitive if you've listened to this show before. This season is a failure if the Texans do not win 2 playoff games. If they win a home playoff game and then get boat raced in the divisional game, we've seen them do that before. And this season was hinging on the fact they made all the moves they made in the offseason because they wanted to do something they had never done before, and that is get to an AFC championship game. Now, the Texans won their division. They have a chance to win back-to-back 10-game seasons. They haven't done that since 2019 when Deshaun Watson was the quarterback. So there's still things to play for, and they still have an opportunity to do things that they've never done before. However, you and I, anybody who's watched this team, we know that this is not how we expected them to get here. The defense has been fantastic the majority of the season. The offense has been terrible, and nobody saw that coming. And granted, there have been a lot of injuries on the offensive line, wide receivers. But even when there were no injuries, the offense just hasn't been good all season. And Bobby Slowick has had the microscope on him all year. He's going to continue to have the microscope on him. And I think because the offense has been so bad, that's one of the reasons DeMeco believes that everybody needs to play at least for a quarter or two. He didn't say how long the starters are going to play, but he did say they would play. So I really don't know what's going to happen. But for me, I don't need to see anybody. Listen, man, I would rest every starter other than maybe the offensive line. And even me, I've been going back and forth on this. I might rest Laramie Tunsil. For me, the offensive line, if you're going to be changing up the line, which we learned today that they are making some adjustments on the offensive line, where Juice Scruggs will be playing right guard instead of left guard. Titus Howard will remain at left guard. Patterson is going to be the center, Once again, Juice Scruggs at right guard, and then you'll have Fisher at right tackle. Obviously, they've never played that lineup before, so they need to build some chemistry. So, yeah, I want to see those guys play probably the entire game. I don't need to see anybody else. I don't need to see CJ. I don't need to see Joe Mixon. I definitely don't need to see Nico. Will Anderson Jr., Daniil Hunter, Stingley, Lassiter, Harris, Toto, Bullock, even Azeez Al-Shaair, who's coming back from suspension. If it was me, none of those guys would be playing. But I'm pretty sure that they're all going to be playing. D'Amico's already said that they will. And that's fine as long as, knock on wood, nobody gets hurt. If somebody gets hurt in a meaningless game, once again, the Houston Texans are at a point where the regular season doesn't matter. Yes, it would be nice if they won 10 games back to back. I don't care if they have a 9-win season if they go on to win 2 playoff games or more. That is what the success of this season is hinging on at this point. But like I said, I don't get paid the big bucks that D'Amico Ryans gets paid. He's going to have his starters out there for how long, we will see. But I'm telling you right now, if the Texans lose one more key player, they are going to be cooked. I don't think they're quite cooked right now. Obviously, after the Baltimore game, it was very emotional, and it sucked to see our Texans get blown out on national television once again. But they still have some fight in them. And the good news about the NFL playoffs is you don't have to play series. It's one game, and anything can happen in one game. But they're going to be having to play their best football, which we have not seen probably all season. So maybe they use this Titans game as a get-right game. The Titans are going to be wearing the Houston Oilers uniforms. That's already going to be some added incentive for some of the players who have dealt with this before. And the Houston Texans owe the Titans a get back because the Titans embarrassed them at home. They were only a 2-win team at the time before they beat the Texans. And they haven't won a game since. They've only won 3 games. And they are trying. Okay, the players on the field are probably not trying to lose, but the organization is definitely trying to lose because they want to get the number 1 pick. I think they would take Travis Hunter. My fellow Twin Toro believes they would take either Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward. We'll see. I think you take the best player. I understand they did just draft a quarterback, and that's kind of why I think maybe they stick with the Mayo man. Maybe not. We'll see. I don't think Shedeur Sanders is going to go anywhere that he doesn't want to go. And why the hell would he want to go to Tennessee? In my opinion, Shedeur Sanders and a lot of these college players might start to have even more of this type of clout. I think he's going to be able to pick where he wants to go just because of who he is, who his father is, and the possibility that perhaps Deion Sanders would leave Colorado for the opportunity to coach his son in the pros. There's been a lot of smoke around the Dallas Cowboys, the Atlanta Falcons. So who knows? For me, I don't want to see any of those players in the AFC South, but it's going to be inevitable because the Titans are terrible. So for me, if you can get a big lead early, then cool. Sit everybody out, get ready, and be healthy for the playoffs, please. Because once again, this whole thing depends on the Texans winning 2 games. If they don't win 2 games in the playoffs, then the season was not successful. Regardless of the injuries, regardless of everything that happened in between, I know some people care more about the narrative around our team as far as national media or the way that we feel confidence or pride in our team. I do care about those things, but what's going to give you more pride than the Houston Texans finally getting to an AFC Championship game and then at least putting up a hell of a fight in that game, if not winning the damn thing? Nothing's going to give you more pride than that. I don't care about the regular season anymore. So the Houston Texans still have fight in them, though. I'm not counting them out. I'm not going to say that the state of the Houston Texans is anything but good. I want to know how you guys feel about it, though. If you don't get a chance to check out this show live, let me know if you can come back to the comments later, or you can go let me know in the Houston Sports Nation Facebook group how you guys are feeling about the Texans going into this last game, going into the playoff game. I say the state of the Houston Texans is still strong. We'll see what happens. Let's make sure they stay healthy, and then we'll see what they can do in the playoffs. let's go ahead and move on to the state of the Houston Rockets. Okay, last night, the Rockets broke their two-game losing streak that they probably should not have had. They let two go against the Miami Heat and against the Minnesota Timberwolves. Two games that they had leads in the fourth quarter that they should have won. So they go on to play the Dallas Mavericks. The Dallas Mavericks were playing without Luka Doncic, but they did have Kyrie Irving. And the Rockets won the game pretty convincingly. And the Rockets beat Dallas at full strength early in the season too. So, look, the question of whether the Houston Rockets are for real as far as a good, competitive, playoff-bound basketball team, I think that question has been answered. The question is, how close are they to being true championship contenders? And I think there's two different groups of people when it comes to that debate. There's some people who believe all they need to do is be patient and allow the players they have to develop, and that they can turn into a championship caliber team once all of those players finally hit their stride and hit their full potential. And then there's another group of Houston Rockets fans who want them to make some type of deal, some type of trade to get a superstar caliber player on this roster right away. I am of the former group, not the latter. I believe that the Houston Rockets need to just let their young players develop, because I believe that there are players already on this team that once they hit their stride, once they hit their full potential, they automatically turn the Houston Rockets into contenders. And I actually wrote an article about that in the Dream Shake. If you guys are not familiar, I do write for the Dream Shake website. And I wrote an article, and it was entitled, "4 Players I Believe Have the Chance to Turn the Rockets into Contenders Sooner Than Later." One of them was Reed Sheppard, which Reed Sheppard is the number 3 pick that the Rockets took in the draft this year. He hasn't gotten a lot of playing time, and when he has played offensively, he has not been very good. The reason I believe he is not in the G League right now is because of what he brings to on the defensive end. And I've had this argument so many times with my buddy Christopher Lewis down at ITC. He believes that Reed Sheppard is trash on both ends of the ball. And I told him, look, man, Ime Udoka likes what this dude does on the defensive side of the ball. No, he's not Amen Thompson. He's not shutting down the other team's best player, but he is a pesky defender, and he puts forth effort. He gets in passing lanes. He strips the ball. And that's Ime Udoka likes that about him. And I believe that's why he's still on the big squad instead of playing down in the G League. The second player that I picked is one I really want to focus on during this show, and it is Cam Whitmore. Cam Whitmore, in the course of his career, has averaged damn near 1 point per minute. Now, early this season, he was struggling a little bit offensively. I think he went like 15 games without hitting a single three-pointer. And I think a lot of it with Cam Whitmore is his confidence and the confidence he feels in himself, because I know it goes all the way back to the draft. In the NBA draft, he was selected number 22 overall by the Rockets. He was projected to be a top 5 pick. As a matter of fact, a lot of people thought the Rockets might take him with the number 4 pick that year. This was in 2023. A lot of people predicted that the Rockets would take him at number 4. Well, they took Amen Thompson instead, which thank goodness they did, because Amen Thompson might be the 6th man of the year in just his sophomore season. But Cam slipped all the way down to 22, and the Rockets were able to scoop him up. And ever since that moment, Houston Rockets fans have felt, what in the world? Like, we got to steal. This guy is a potential superstar. He just needs to get some time on the floor. And anytime he's been on the floor, save, those few first games of the season, he's been excellent, at least offensively. And I think he's starting to make headway defensively. But for some reason, Cam keeps getting sent down to Rio Grande Valley, and Reed Sheppard, who's not playing well, is still on the big team. And a lot of Houston Rockets fans are frustrated about that. They don't really understand why that is. And there's another person who's possibly doesn't understand why that is and is frustrated by it, and that is Cam Whitmore himself. Last night, he scored 18 points on 5 of 9 shooting. He was fantastic. Again, he only played like 18 minutes. Like I said, this dude scores like a point per minute, which is incredible. He's extremely efficient on the offensive side of the ball. And if you guys have been watching this Houston Rockets team, that's definitely something that they could use because at times they struggle offensively. And Cam Whitmore can be that shot in the arm that they need on the offensive side of the ball, excuse me. He can go get his own shot. He shoots the three pretty well. And I think on defense, like he's not a scrub on defense. Like, is he defending at the same level of Amen Thompson and Tari Eason whenever he's healthy? No. But I think he's, like I said, I think he's starting to make headway. And I think that Ime Udoka would agree with that as well. But after the game last night, Cam Whitmore gave a press conference and he was asked about how it felt to get some extended minutes and to perform well and to play. And I want you guys to listen to what he said in that interview.
How did it feel just to, get consistent minutes there in that second quarter, but also in that fourth quarter to close the game?
I don't think it was consistent minutes. I really think that, I contribute a little bit, but it doesn't really, affect anything. It doesn't really, can't get me nowhere, but we'll see what happens. But just glad we got the win.
You don't feel good about how you played tonight?
I do, but it's nothing. It doesn't mean anything.
Is it kind of just a weird spot with where you're at right now?
No, not a weird spot. I just don't know. Just don't know what's going on. I have a lot of question marks for myself.
In what way?
No other way. It's just I don't know what's going on. I don't know what the deal with me is, but I just don't know.
Did you feel like coming in the second quarter that you need to provide that spark, with the team trailing by 10 points?
That's my goal. Every time I step on the floor with these guys, just to bring energy, spark, joy, just some juice to help these guys win.
What was your mindset on defense, especially? The whole team seemed really locked in on that end tonight.
I feel like we had to defend. That's like they're coming off Eastern Conference. Western Conference Finals. So they're a very good team. We got Kyrie and Klay Thompson. So definitely have to dial in a little bit more. It's not just any team we're playing.
Do you think that you've done enough to show that you deserve a consistent role and consistent minutes in this game?
No, I don't. No.
What more do you think you need to do?
Sure, I don't know. I really don't know. I have a lot of question marks for myself, just as you guys too.
That didn't sound like a guy who just had a really great game and beat the defending Western Conference champions. Shout out to my man Lashard Binkley, former Dream Shake staff writer who now writes for the Houston Rockets Sports Illustrated, or covers the Rockets for Sports Illustrated. We're in a group chat on X, and he got into the chat and he said, man, Cam just gave a really weird interview. And that was him asking the question. He asked the second question in that interview. That was my man Lashard. Shout out to him. He said, Cam just gave a really weird interview. And I thought to myself, Cam always gives weird interviews. Like, if I'm honest, he's kind of a weird guy. But no, you can definitely tell from that interview, he's feeling some type of way. And I didn't get a chance to capture the audio, but Ime Udoka did go on the Matt Thomas show on the Sports Talk 790, which is the flagship station of the Houston Rockets. And Matt Thomas does the radio broadcast for them. He had Ime Udoka on the show, and he asked him if he heard what Cam had to say. And Ime said, yeah, I heard it, and I'm fine with him expressing himself that way. And he said, as much as I communicate my expectation to you guys, trust me, I communicate to the players times 10. So Cam knows what he needs to do to get on the floor. And to Ime Udoka's credit, he said, he's starting to get there. But Cam seems frustrated. And I'm going to be honest with you. I put Cam Whitmore on that list of people that I think can turn the Rockets into contenders for a reason, because I really do believe this guy has superstar potential. But I can understand if he's a little bit frustrated. This is a really deep team. And in the interview with Matt Thomas, Ime Udoka mentioned this. Look, man, we're a deep team. There's a not a lot of minutes to be had. You got to be ready to play when your name is called and be ready to play your best at that time and take advantage of that. And he said a lot of the other guys who probably would be getting a lot more minutes on other teams, they've been playing the minutes they're given and they're not complaining. Listen, obviously I like the fact that Cam Whitmore wants to play. Do I want Cam Whitmore to be disgruntled? I mean, Cam Whitmore is only 20 years old, so we have to keep all of that in mind. Like, he's probably not, it's not even probably, he is not emotionally mature enough to deal with situations like this right now. This is a learning experience for him. And he's probably felt like he's been getting the shaft ever since the NBA draft. He believes he should have been a top 5 pick. He believes he should be a starter on an NBA team, and he's probably right. There are probably, give or take, 25 other teams that Cam Whitmore would be a starter on and probably be featured in their offense at some point. And right now he's coming off the bench only because Tari Eason is injured, and he got extended minutes last night because of the Amen Thompson suspension, which we didn't get a chance to talk about. But in the course of losing a game to Miami that they should have won, like half the team got kicked out the game, including Ime Udoka, the head coach, and the assistant coach got kicked out as well. But yeah, so that's really the only reason he's getting minutes this season. That's really the only reason he got minutes last season, because Tari Eason was out for most of the year. So understandably, he's frustrated. I hope that the Houston Rockets keep in mind that, yes, this is a grown man, air quotes there, but he is also, he's a kid. He's 20 years old. And I hope that they're able to give him some tough love, which I know Ime Udoka is doing. He's brought that up on many occasions. Like, he's a tough coach. He tells it like it is. He tells the players what they need to know. And the majority of them has responded really well to that. It seems like Cam might not be responding as well. I have a hard time believing, he was asked, what do you think you need to do? And he kept saying, I don't know. I have a really hard time believing that Ime Udoka has not communicated to him what he needs from him or what more he needs from him. Maybe he feels like he's doing everything that Ime Udoka has asked him to do. And he very well might be. Like I said, in the last 4 or 5 games that he's played, he's been fantastic. However, this is a really deep team. And Ime Udoka talked about it with, Reed Shepherd hasn't been playing a lot recently either. And Ime talked about it. Look, we have a little bit of a double duty right now because, yes, we want to develop these young guys and get them acclimated to the NBA game, but we're also trying to win. My argument would be, Ime, Cam Whitmore can help you win. On those games where Jalen Green scoring 9 points in 38 minutes, maybe a little bit of Cam Whitmore would help in those situations, man. Because in those moments where this team just goes completely dead on offense, you could use an infusion of offensive energy that Cam Whitmore brings you. And when he's knocking down his perimeter shots, when he's hitting the mid-range, and when he's attacking the basket, he is a difference maker. Rockets, I know you guys are probably watching the show, probably all big fans. Please don't fumble this. Like, Cam Whitmore has superstar potential. And I don't know if they're hanging on to him because they want to trade him, because maybe they agree with the other half of the Houston Rockets fans who think that a move needs to be made in order to make them contenders. I think that Cam Whitmore, in conjunction with a couple of other players, I mentioned Reed Shepherd in this article. I also brought up Jabari Smith and Jalen Green as people who, once they hit their full potential, there's no trades that need to be made. You will have everything that you need on this team already. It's just a matter of when, or in some cases, if they're ever going to do that. You guys know how I feel about Jalen Green, but he continues to be extremely inconsistent. This dude scored 40 points one night and scored 9 the next. Followed up a couple of games later with a 6-point effort, and I think that was after like a 30-point game. I love this dude, but he has got to get consistent. For me, though, Rockets, please don't fumble the bag when it comes to Cam Whitmore. As a matter of fact, my editor, shout out to Darren Yvonne, he asked me if I would write an article going into more depth about what I think the Rockets should do with Cam Whitmore. A lot of people are going to disagree with me because I mentioned how Tari Eason and his lack of availability is going to hurt him. I think that if Tari Eason comes back and Cam Whitmore is playing like he is, I think it's Tari Eason who's going to need to earn his minutes back by proving that he can stay on the court and be healthy. I know that there's a drop-off defensively, but I think what Cam Whitmore brings on the offensive end of the ball can definitely offset that, especially if he plays within the team defense concept. The Rockets play very, very good team defense. They need a shot in the arm when it comes to offense. So I'll be writing that article. I'll probably get started on it maybe tonight. Hopefully have it posted by tomorrow afternoon sometime. I don't know. Hopefully I'm not biting off more than I can chew. I already had to put this show back a day because I got a call from my normal 9 to 5. But hey, man, listen, the Houston Rockets are close, man. They're really, really close. And if you guys aren't paying attention to this team, watch this team. I know the NBA is really down right now. Their ratings have been terrible. That's one of the reasons, though. Everything you hate about the NBA, if you think they take too many threes, if you think there's no defense, the Houston Rockets are the complete opposite of that. I'm telling you, watch this team. They don't just chunk up a bunch of threes because honestly, they don't have very many good three-point shooters. They take more than maybe the 90s Rockets did because that's just the way the game is played now. But they take the mid-range shot, they attack the basket, and they play really, really good defense. If you guys aren't watching this team, you should be watching them. You're missing out if you're not. I would say the state of the Houston Rockets is very strong, and I'm enjoying watching the team as well. All right, guys, really quick, let's move on to the state of the Houston Astros. Okay, last week on this show, or I guess it was 2 weeks ago now, I said that this baseball season was going to be a test for all of you new Astros fans. All of the Astros fans who are used to the Astros being in the ALCS every year, being able to just pencil them into that game and figuring the AL is going through Houston at some point. That doesn't mean I think this team is going to completely fall off a cliff. And I think that's where the disconnect was between me and some of the real Astros fans who have been here for a while. Or maybe they're newer Astros fans, but they've already become ride or dies because I've took some criticism for saying that I've written them off, that I've given up on them. I'm not doing that. I think they still can be good. I still think they can be contenders in the AL West. I still think they can be contenders in the AL. But if you've been a fan of this team since 2017, that's actually a step down from what they have been, because for the last decade, you can pretty much pencil them in that they're going to win the division most years by double-digit games, and they're going to cruise to the ALCS, and 3 times they went to the World Series, winning it twice. I just think they're not going to be that again for a while. What's the reason I think they're not going to be that again? All of the players that they became that with are pretty much gone. And yeah, they're going to have to take some time to rebuild that. Losing Kyle Tucker, we're not going to act like losing Kyle Tucker is not going to hurt this team. We're not going to act like losing Alex Bregman is not going to hurt this team. Is Isaac Paredes a decent third baseman and he can be moved around on the infield and probably on the outfield as well? You know, I'm not going to sit here and act like I know everything about Isaac Paredes, but I know he's a decent player. But I mean, you're losing Alex Bregman and you're losing Kyle Tucker. That's 2 major pieces of the top 5-6 guys in your rotation. I'm sorry, in your lineup. And listen, 7 through 9 last year was absolute trash. It hasn't gotten any better right now. And once again, you're not going to have Kyle Tucker. You're not going to have Alex Bregman. Now, Christian Walker is a very good pickup. It was a need that they had. They needed a good glove and a good bat to play first base. Thank goodness John Singleton, as much as I like him personally, he's not an everyday starter at first base. So Christian Walker was a good signing. Right now, there is a very big hole left in the outfield. I love my boy Jordan. He's not a great outfielder. He's got a cannon of an arm, but he plays left field at what used to be Minute Maid Park. What is it? Deacon? I can't remember how to pronounce the new sponsor of the of the new park. But yeah, I mean, there's a hole in the outfield, and there's some pretty decent outfielders out there still to be gotten, and maybe the Astros will grab one of them. But right now, I don't think they're going to be the dominant team that we saw them be for the better part of a decade. That doesn't mean I think they're going to suck. But there's a lot of new Astros fans. Once again, they're used to them being dominant. Some of them may not be able to handle the Astros just being good. They're not going to be able to handle them maybe just making the playoffs, losing in the first round again. I know a bunch of y'all lost your minds last year when it happened. And for me, I told you guys, I watched this team when they were losing 100 games every season. I watched this game when Drayton McClain was trying to pretend that they were contenders because he was paying Carlos Lee and he was paying Miguel Tejada stupid money considering what their production was. In hindsight, let me correct myself on that. Carlos Lee was a pretty good player. What you paid him at the time, I think it was 6 years, $100 million. At the time, that was like, woo, hella money. I mean, that's nothing now. But we were supposed to believe that this Astros team were contenders with Carlos Lee. And let's keep it real. They weren't. They just weren't. They were a good, average, mediocre baseball team. And that's all they remained until they finally decided, hey, we need to strip this down butt naked and start over. The good news is I don't think the Astros need to do that now. I think that this is kind of like a soft reset. They trade Kyle Tucker instead of letting him walk for nothing. And they get Cam Smith, who's a very good. They have 2 top 100 prospects now with Cam Smith and Jacob Melton. And honestly, Jacob Melton, maybe he's the answer this season at right field. I hope so. He's going to get his opportunity for sure. But we'll see what the Astros do. But I'm not down on them. I'm not selling them up the river. I'm not saying that they're cooked. I'm just saying they're not going to be as dominant as they have been. That's just my opinion. They won't be that dominant. And that's okay for me. But for some of you newer Astros fans, you might not be able to handle that. You might not like that. But yeah, I got to have that discussion with a lot of people. And I got a lot of pushback on it. Mostly from TikTok, which is kind of a good segue. Because anytime I post content anywhere, I love when you guys respond. Like, I love doing this show live because every now and again, there's people in the live chat who interact. And I love doing that. Anytime there's an opportunity to engage with other Houston fans, that's the reason I do this. So I went on TikTok and I posted a short from last week's show where I said, if you guys just became Astros fans back in 2015 when they started winning and you've known nothing but them being dominant, getting in the ALCS every year, making it to the World Series, winning the World Series, being an Astros fan this season and for the next couple of seasons is probably going to be a challenge for you because they're going to suck? No, but because they're probably not going to be that dominant. And I got a lot of pushback from a lot of people because I posted that video on TikTok and it got over 40,000 views, which leads me to the problem that I have with TikTok. If you guys have not been living under a rock, TikTok will officially go under its ban on the 19th, unless the Supreme Court stops that from happening, which the last I checked, they're not going to do that. I know that we have a new administration coming in and they want to try to solve the TikTok problem themselves. But I think TikTok is going to be banned starting on the 19th. TikTok knows they're going to be banned starting on the 19th. I have never posted anything that came close to 40,000 views before this last video I just posted. And it's a Houston Astros video. Guys, we in Houston, we love our Astros. But you guys know, baseball in general, Houston Astros does not move the needle in national conversations on social media. Trust me, I post Astros videos all the time. They'll get a little bit of traction from a few Astros fans. You post anything about the Houston Texans, the NFL moves the needle. Football moves the needle. Even basketball moves the needle more than baseball does. So the fact that I haven't even checked it recently, it's got to be getting close to 50,000 views on a Houston Astros video. That lets me know that TikTok knows they are on their last leg here in the US, and they want us Americans to be upset about the fact that they're going away. Look, we were already upset, but I don't like the fact that you have that much control over my content. And this leads me to the other spaces like Facebook, like X, Instagram. All I want you to do is show my content to the people who have decided that they want to follow me. Is that too much to ask? Without having to pay you extra money, they've decided they want to follow me. So they have already acknowledged that they want to see my content. I shouldn't have to pay your platform extra money just so the people who follow me can see their content. There's people I follow who I don't see their content for days at a time. And it's frustrating. And it just lets me know that all of these platforms, they have the power to make sure that either people do hear you or don't hear you. And what they've decided to do is make sure that people don't hear you unless you pay for it. But now, all of a sudden, TikTok wants me to be heard. I've posted dozens of videos on that platform. I think the most I'd gotten before yesterday was maybe a couple of thousand. I think the video I posted before that got close to 3,000. And even that, listen, I think TikTok is opening the floodgates on, creators in the US because they want to, as much as people don't realize this, TikTok does need the US to survive. And that's kind of why the US is holding them hostage, which sucks. That's a whole nother conversation for another time. But it just frustrated me that now you're about to be gone, TikTok, and you show my content to 40,000 people. You couldn't have done that 2 years ago. You couldn't have done that with the Smells Like Middle-Aged Spirit podcast, which my account you canceled and banned for I have no idea why, because TikTok doesn't even have like customer service, bro. It's annoying. But yeah, I got a chance to talk to a lot of people about my stance on the Astros because all of a sudden, a lot of people got to hear my stance on the Astros. I'm not complaining about that. I love to talk to you guys. I wish there would be more people on the live shows every week. I'm encouraging you, if you do watch this live show or if you don't watch it live, please come on and watch it live. I do the first week of every month. I do the show on Wednesday. The 2 middle weeks I do on Friday. It's not confusing? Probably. But I'm going to be able to do it more often once this show gets bigger, once this show grows, and once this becomes my full-time gig, which I'm speaking into existence in 2025. But yeah, I don't think the Astros are going to suck. I don't think they're going to be the most dominant team in baseball. Not only because they've taken a brief and small step back, I believe, but other teams are catching up too. But I like the way they're running this thing. I think they're being smart about it. I don't want to see them giving out 13, 14, 15-year contracts to guys who are going to be 45 and making $70 million a year by the end of it. No, thank you. Like, do what you're doing. But the good part about that, or I say the price you have to pay for that, is you might take a step back for a couple of years. And I saw the sentiment of a lot of Astros fans who shared the same sentiment I had last week. That means the tickets might be cheaper. The beer might be cheaper. It's not a bad thing to have this little bit of a reset. But it's going to be the real fans who are out there, because we saw what happened in 2011, 2012, 2013. I've said it a dozen times. You could spray a fire hose into the crowd at the time, what was Minute Maid Park, and you wouldn't hit anybody because nobody was there. And, but man, you know what also TikTok did for me? It made me feel really old, because there was a bunch of people in there like, man, I've been a fan ever since 2005, the good old days. And I'm like, bro, at first I was thinking like, that's not that long. That was literally 20 years ago. It was 20 years ago that the Astros first went to the World Series. I'd been rooting for the Astros since like 1994. So I feel really, really old. And I mean, that it is TikTok. There's not a whole lot of boomers and old people like myself on TikTok. So, but I enjoyed talking to as many people as I did. Even there was a bunch of haters in there too. But hey, I enjoyed talking to the haters, man. I just love talking Houston sports. This is why I do this show. That's why I want to continue doing this show. And that's why I appreciate you guys so much for engaging with me, for watching the show, and for paying attention to the content. And I would love to do it more often. So please, if you guys get an opportunity to watch this show live, I would love for you guys to hop in the chat or even hop on the phone and let's talk Houston sports, man. The state of the union in Houston is still strong. Trust me, there are much, much worse sports cities in the world. You could be Charlotte. You could have the Panthers and the Hornets as your teams. Think about it, man. You could be Portland, have a terrible basketball team and no football. Houston is one of the greatest sports cities in the world, despite the fact that sometimes our fans can be a little bit emotional, can be a little bit wish-washy. That's why I do this show. That's why I exist, because I want to help my fellow Houstonians become better Houston sports fans, and I want to create new Houston sports fans. So I thank you guys so much for joining me. Once again, let me remind you of the ways you can support the show. As I said before, one of them you've been doing. You listen, you watch, you share with your friends and family. Please remind them to like, follow, subscribe, wherever they get their podcast fix. I also have a tip jar link in the description. If you're watching on a TV and you're able to scan this QR code, it'll take you there as well. If you leave me a donation of $50 or more, I will give you some Houston Sports State of the Union podcast swag, hat, t-shirt, hoodie, whatever you like. I want to remind you guys to please screenshot that you made that donation and send it to me in my email at hsstateoftheunionpod@gmail.com. Or if you're following me on my socials, send me that screenshot in my DMs, because that is an anonymous tip. I won't know it's you unless you let me know. And if you make that donation of $50, I'll make sure you get your free t-shirt, hat, or hoodie. In the description, there will also be affiliate links for Houston Sports fan gear. If you're going to the game and you figure, hey, I need to get a new Rockets t-shirt when I go to the Rockets game. If you're going to buy one anyway, why don't you check out the links I have in my description? They're Amazon links. If you buy the shirt from that Amazon link, then I'll get a little bit of commission from that. And that money will go right back into this show to continue bringing you guys good content. There's also affiliate links for the equipment that I'm using to bring you this fine podcast. I love my Rodecaster 2. It's the best purchase I ever made. I love my Canon XA60. There's actually newer versions of this camera out now, but I have all that stuff in the description. If you're interested in knowing what it is, you want to purchase it for yourself, and you do so with my affiliate links, I appreciate that so much, because I will get a commission from that. And then lastly, I do have sponsorship available on both this show, Houston Sports State of the Union podcast, and the Twin Toros podcast with my man Ruben Calavillo of 713 Houston Sports. We would love to represent your business. We would love to be able to shout out your business on both of these shows. If you're interested in doing that, once again, hsstateoftheunionpod@gmail.com, or hit me up in the DMs on my socials. All right, guys, once again, State of the Union in Houston is strong. I'm going to see you guys next Friday. In the meantime, you know what I want you to do? I want you to stay 10 toes down for the H. I love you, and good night.
This has been the Houston Sports State of the Union podcast, hosted by Nick Stevenson. Tune in next week for more news and analysis of your favorite Houston teams. Please follow the show on Facebook, Instagram, the app formerly known as Twitter, if that's even really still a thing. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content.